just community advocates. They do a ton of great work in our community, and they are gracious to give this at like Sunday afternoon when they're cleaning up for their Jake's dinner. So they were able to do this for us. So wonderful thanks to them. I want to acknowledge my senior staff who are here, both Staff Sergeant John Lindy and Scott Crammers who are here. Obviously we met Lisa and Hillary and Deputy Chief and Phil, our IT peer people. So this is a team event, and this is going to be the theme of what we're going to talk about today. Again, if you're not comfortable in asking questions, I totally understand it in a crowd this size. Just write it down on a piece of paper.
Hi, my name is Chloe Craig. I am a born in this area resident. I've been here for close to 40 years now, and the changes that I've seen throughout my life have been kind of substantial. I used to walk around this town, no questions asked, no problem, 2 o'clock in the morning when I was finishing a shift. Nowadays, I won't even do that. If it's dark, I'm not by myself. And I have an 11-year-old daughter at home. And I live in the so-called downtown area. I am surrounded by Transition House, our lovely properties over on John and James, and the number of calls that I've had to make to the department for individuals under the influence, individuals using our property to get out of the sight of people, store their stuff, things like that. We found a bag with knives in it one day. We found drug paraphernalia. Our property, there are 3 little ones under 12 that use the backyard and play. We have to monitor that yard to make sure there's not needles and things like that. And I get why people use. I have a background in social service work, mental health and addiction work. I understand where people are coming from. The problem is I'm not seeing the response from the community, and I love that we have members of the town council, but I don't see county, I don't see provincial or federal, and I think they need to be here as well because they need to know. And so, that's all my 30 seconds. A couple pieces. I talked to Janice about the homelessness response. You have 1 MHART staff and you have 2 homelessness staff. You have probably about 70 residents in Northumberland that are considered homeless. You don't have enough staff for what is going on, and we need to see better communication and coordination with all levels to be able to support those, because it's not going to change until that is all supported.
So Chloe, first off, everybody else, I'm going to say it once. So first off, it's always something to be first, right? So thank you for taking the time to write a question down or come to the mic. So if I don't say it subsequently, I don't discount you. I'm going to make one giant thank you that you've put it forward. Chloe, thank you very, very much. I think I've heard the story, so I think I've got the email as well, and I think you and I have spoken before. We haven't? Okay. I agree. A system that has the social disorders of that intersection that I showed, it's not one agency that can solve this. And I applaud you, as everybody else did. You'll know the chair nor I got an applause, but you did, so good on you. You're right, it does start at the highest level. So what I can say is that we have HARP funding only because of our great team putting together great work. Sergeant McDonald and Constable Bertrand did a pilot project on this. I was able to get a grant for that from the province to do that program. I would say to you that every uniformed officer who provides service to this community is a HARP officer at some point in their shift, every shift. In relation to the hard crime that you spoke about, we've had very successful drug warrants in certain homes, and maybe the ones you've referred to in your comments. We continue to do that. We continue to do great work, our partnerships with local police services around us. But I echo your concern, and I've taken down the notes, better communication, better coordination, and that's something I can take away. I just got to think hard too close. Very thorough process that's laid out. It is a timely process, but sometimes a lot of good processes are timely. I'm going to jump to the naming. We do name people. We don't name every person. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. You've probably heard me talk about this forever. we're following provincial best practices around naming of persons who are accused or alleged to have committed an offense. We released our policies on the website. It's been on the website for over a year. I did a report to the board to explain why it is we don't and do. One of the things we do is we release a lot of information, which, in hindsight, maybe is adding to your fear of crime. So when we release and don't release, I think we're very consistent with those services who do release names, but we release a lot more stuff that maybe or maybe not. Two sides of the argument. I'm comfortable where we are right now. Not everybody will agree with me, but we do name those people. We name those people involved in significant crimes. And sometimes when I don't see a real public interest, or there's no, what is the end game? Like, is this a crime prevention by releasing somebody's name for the 13th time for breach of probation? I just, following provincial best practices, we don't release that. And it's enough said about that. So why don't I arrest people for simple possessions in the consumption tents? Because the federal government has told me I shouldn't arrest people for simple possession of drugs. Full stop. The police enforce the laws, but please know this clearly. We have to follow them too. So when the federal crown, so in Ontario, there's a provincial crown, does all those other charges. Any drug charge is a federal charge, there's a separate crown attorney for that. The federal crown of Canada has deemed the decriminalized simple possession. In other words, somebody caught with a simple use of any illegal narcotic, and that's in itself, just that simple possession. The federal crown has told us that we are to look for diverted opportunities to get the person help, detox, assistance, and not charge them. Not to charge them. We, on our release, I put the link to the federal crown's directive. Not Paul Vandergraaf's, not Jeff Haskins's, the federal crown of Canada's directive. So, let me take you down the path, because I've gotten a lot of questions about this, you can imagine. If I allowed my officers, if I said, I'm going to ignore the federal crown attorney's direction, I'm putting my officers in 3 lanes of risk and liability. I don't want to put them in any. 3. First, civil liability. They're doing something that they know the Crown is not going to prosecute and they're going to dismiss. So there's reasonable expectation that we're going to be sued for wrongful prosecution. Google wrongful prosecution Ontario, you'll see the list of offenses and the settlements. 2, the town. I work for the town, work for the board through the town. The town will have civil liability. They'll sue me, they'll sue Jeff, they'll sue the officer, they'll sue the town. 3, criminal liability. If the officers have to put their hands on somebody to effect an arrest, that is a violent crime by definition, that's an assault. And now I have an officer who could be criminally arrested for assault because we know the federal crown has told us they're not going to proceed with the charge. That's why we don't arrest for simple possession. Thereby, we don't enter onto private property to effect an arrest for something we know we can't proceed with. Public property, different set of circumstances. There's bylaws, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, that's why we don't arrest people for simple possession. And I missed my pink note, didn't I? So don't look at me. Sorry.
About why we're not releasing names of the repeat offenders. I mean, I understand that, people do have lots, we have to have discretion. But when it's happening over and over again, that could be a bit of a concern. Some questions I have, and this comes from the AANA community, per se, I guess I may be speaking on their behalf in some way, but transition house, I hear that there's a lot of calls in and out often with transition house, and I know that Trinity Church is often used as a location for
Can you get closer to the mic?
For users. So I know that Trinity Churches, from what I've heard, they're pretty upset about not having any support there. I may be wrong in that, but my other question was about Victoria Park. There was a red tent, which I'm sure you've heard about the red tent. You haven't heard about the red tent? Okay. Well, there's a little red tent in Victoria Park recently, and it's put together by, I believe from what I saw on video, was a small group of self-admitted drug addicts, users, which don't get me wrong, I'm totally in support of addictions. I'm in recovery myself, so there I am out there. But we need to do better. We need to do better, and I don't know what the answer is. Like Transition House cannot, they just don't have the tools and the access to different community, federal, provincial. They don't have the help. They can't do it on their own. I'm wondering, someone else mentioned about, I wonder if Philip Lawrence, our local MP, is he someone that should be involved in this? He's federal. So that might be something we could look into.
Go ahead.
Okay. I know this has been talked about, it's probably been asked and answered. Brookside keeps coming up over and over, and I believe it's a provincial thing, so we really don't have any. Okay, I think that's my.
We'll see if this battery will be charged a bit here. Thanks very much, Eva. Okay, so I'll walk through this. Transition House provides a pretty remarkable service. I think the issue we need to start talking about. Is detox facilities. I think the path forward is a detox facility. I don't know what that looks like, where that looks like. I'm not the detox expert, but I know Chief Callahan in Belleville has put a motion through for all the chambers of commerces across Ontario to pressure the provincial government to, and I believe federally as well, to increase funding for detox. I had a call with our MPP about what was in the budget in relation to that. He did indicate that there was some additional funding for detox beds, but not necessarily detox facilities. We're very quick to throw Transition House and the efforts that they do, and I understand the community around Transition House, and we talk about those non-crime events, but there are people who, if it weren't for Transition House, would be on the street. There is a funding issue there. For sure, that is at the provincial and federal level, and I 100% agree with you. Again, we go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Anybody who's listened to that, right? The basic near the bottom of that triangle is housing, food, and clothing. So I enter into the conversation with empathy there, recognizing that we work closely with them to try to get them to try to police better as we can, but it is a challenge. It's a challenging community, and I've said this in other areas, in other circumstances. High density living brings high density problems. In other words, when you have a lot of people living under one roof, I know when my kids come back from Ottawa and Peterborough, I'll stay in my house. I'm usually looking for the chair to give me extra work to do so I can get out of the house. So this is no different. And these are people with high acuity needs, and I understand it, and I hear you, and I think that's going to only foot patrol, and I think we have answered the repeat offender. If I've missed something, just grab me at the end and I'll try to talk.
I wanted to talk to you about the perception of fear and how that does create avoidance, and provide a specific example. Last year I watched as a mom and her 2 kids on scooters wanted to use the Frank to ride around. There were 3 people who were actively high, who were exhibiting that type of behavior. And so the 2 kids were told by their mother not to go there. I understand, I'm not afraid of the substance users. I've actually taken the opportunity to go and speak with many of them when I see them. I checked on them to make sure they're okay. I reached out to some of the people on the advocate side to get an understanding of where they come from as well. And my heart breaks for the whole situation, but my fear is that because of the avoidance of people who want to use the park but are afraid to, we're going to create an environment in our town where only people who are substance users are using the streets. I think that the cabins and the tents are more of a cry for help. I don't think they're a solution, but I think the advocates are just saying, please, please do something, because there's nothing coming from the other side, right? Yes. So my understanding is that Brookside is a provincial place. I don't know if anybody believes that that's the right place. It's an empty space. Apparently it has like facilities. I understand that David Mischief said we can make that available. I don't know if that was just words, but I mean, we have to do something. There's people that are homeless, not addicted. They deserve a place to live. The people who are addicted, who want help, need a place, and maybe, you know, this is a terrible thing to say, but maybe there's like palliative care for somebody who does not want to get off of drugs, who can't see their path forward.
Okay, listen, this is our emotional topics for everybody, and I appreciate we're not all going to agree, but we are going to respect space and time. You may not agree with the answers I'm giving, and that's okay. In fact, I encourage it. I encourage you to throw your whatever you want to say it to me. But everybody who has a chance and the courage to say something, I want them to be heard. Everybody. Yes. So Brookside, I've heard it twice now. That's what I missed, Ava. I missed Brookside. Not in my lane. Like everyone has moved 14 different things into Brookside. There's been developments, there's been detox facilities, there's been all sorts of, not my lane. My suggestion, MPP Pacini's office is in Port Hope. Get down there, call him, call their office. They're great folk. They can tell you what's going on. Talk to town council. Maybe they're engaged in that conversation. Be a great new place for a police facility, a new one, sort of. No, I jest a little, not. But there's a lot of things that's not my lane. So to come back to you, first off, thank you for sharing and your authenticity in your comments. I appreciate that. We do have to find a path forward. Everybody needs to know that they're safe. Their space is safe. And everybody should be able to enjoy anything, and nobody's behavior should impede anybody from doing something else. So
is the southwest corner of John and James, and not all the corners at John and James are not nice. Currently we have many tenants. All of our tenants are very active, contributing members of our community. And we've had many conversations in my office about how we can be a part of the solution. And we have had to increase our budget to pay for our own security services to go by. We've had to install a lock so that our doors are locked at 11 p.m. and unlocked at 7 a.m. I hate the thought of having to kick somebody out of my lobby because they're looking for a safe, warm place to sleep. But I have my tenants to be concerned about. And right above my lobby is a tenant's bedroom. And we've seen drug paraphernalia in our hallway, in the lobby. We've seen remnants of smoking and whatever. I can't risk the safety of the people in my building. But we firmly believe that you can't find a solution working in silos, that all people need to come together to find a solution and hopefully work as a team and not boo people because they have an idea. We have to leave our egos at the door and we need to work together. So my question is, how can I get on that team?
The concern I have is trying to understand fairness. So in the case of my daughter and my little granddaughter going to the library, this is just a little snapshot of how do we discuss fairness with a 6-year-old. So going into the library, there's a refrigerator there, which is such a lovely sentiment to be able to provide at least some kind of nourishment for people who are in desperate straits. And I think I wholeheartedly, support those kinds of initiatives. Is it the right place in the library? When my granddaughter goes there and asks her mom, "What's that funny smell?" and looks around and is saying, "I don't feel good," and then you're trying to bring this little person into the realm of what is the library and the books and the wonderful support and all these exciting things that you can learn about, and her reaction is, "I'm not going to the library. I don't like it. I don't like the smell." So how are we going to, thank you, how are we going to be fair? How are we fair to these individuals who are, I'm sure not all of them have mental health issues, but there seems to be a feeling too that anybody who is a drug addict is something wrong mentally with them. So how do we clarify that? How do we make that be fair? And how are we fair to our community, especially our young community, like the other snapshot story of the children who wanted to play and couldn't because of the situation. So how can we be fair?
Just taking a second here to get my thoughts on that one. You're right, and fairness begins with my folk, whatever rollout we have, whatever comes out, is going to try to ensure that all spaces are fair, if you will. And that's one way of putting it. I think it's similar theme to what we said before. So you should be able to go to the library and be free to enjoy the library and all it offers and everything it does. And specific to your concerns around the library, I would ask that you meet with the staff there and talk to them because they're the best people to talk to you about that. I'm not a librarian. In relation to public spaces and usage thereof, the job of our team is to ensure that all people have willful, open access to everything that the community has to offer. And if that means we have people who are impeding others from using the frink or playgrounds or the beach or whatever it is, then we're hearing very clearly that our officers are going to be engaged in ensuring those fair lanes, whatever they look like.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jeff McLean. I'm the organizer of No More Drugs in Cobourg and Woodstock. My question is a little bit personal to you and the deputy chief. It's not a personal attack, but it is an important question. Why do you and your officers not arrest known dealers and affiliates that continue to sell drugs by carrying the legal less than 2.5 grams using their runners on foot and in vehicles? We all know who they are, and so do your officers, but they are rarely arrested or charged, and many people avoid calling the police for fear of retaliation. We live in a small town, everyone knows who everyone is. Are you worried that the drug addicts will have a harder time finding drugs, if at all, and end up going through an unsafe withdrawal? And if not, why do your officers ignore them every day? They are keeping drug users, I'm going to correct my wording there, drug users sick. Thank you.
So thank you for your question. respond to that because our officers engage in work to protect the community from persons who peddle in poison in the community on a regular basis. And these are some very challenging types of investigations to engage into. And it takes a lot of work to identify and lawfully address some of those situations. So I want to counter to you and say that I don't actually believe that our officers willingly ignore circumstances where we encounter persons with drugs and what have you. But there is a process and a framework that we have to work within with our staff and our personnel. And we do collaborate on a regular basis with our partners in Cobourg, partners in the OPP, to identify, disrupt any organized crime that contributes to the impact on community safety in Cobourg and beyond. So it's a great question, and quite often you think that perhaps maybe our folks are not focusing on the things that matter to you and the things that you see, but the work that we do does come with rules and a process that we have to follow. So thank you.
My name is Teresa Rickerby, and I'm a parent, a local downtown business owner, a resident, and a community advocate. I have been deeply invested in Cobourg, and in particular downtown Cobourg, for the last 23 years. As a downtown business owner, I am pleased to say that in 23 years, we have experienced only one incident of petty crime, and I would like to think that it's partially because Cobourg is a safe community and because we have always done our best to be an inclusive business that creates relationships with all citizens of Cobourg. I will keep this short as I'm sure many people want to speak. Question: what actions will Cobourg Police Service be taking to ensure the safety of Cobourg's most marginalized people and the community volunteers who are showing up to provide care and compassion during an opioid and homelessness crisis as declared by the town of Cobourg?
Everybody, I think, knows Teresa, and I appreciate Teresa's comment. Quite frankly, it doesn't matter what you do or who you are in town. Our officers, in my opinion, do a great job every day in protecting everybody. Period.
It's very common to see police officers walking around downtown Cobourg. We never see officers patrolling on foot anymore. Why has this stopped, and can they be brought back? This is a question that someone here has wrote. This isn't online, a recent comment, so please know that there has been an increase in patrols. So somebody has wrote here, a Ken Pure. Yep, that sounds about right. I do appreciate police presence outside of Victoria Hall at events that finish after dark. Some of my customers at concerts and plays have expressed concern for their safety and security when leaving these events that conclude after dark. Indeed, some have said they will not attend downtown evening events out of concern for safety. Police foot patrols and cruiser presence provide this comfort and that someone is watching over us, so thank you again. So again, this is for you to answer as well about the patrols.
So I think we're hearing loud and clear that folks really want to see a presence of our members in the downtown spaces to ensure that everyone can enjoy the downtown space and all the other areas in Cobourg as well. You know, there's a challenge with our deployment, obviously. We can't be everywhere at once. But what I can tell you is that, you know, this is at the next board meeting, we are going to be telling the board on a regular basis how often we're in the downtown and some of our the work that we're doing when we are in the downtown. So in over last month, there have been 100 foot patrols throughout Cobourg, and the majority of which have been concentrated in downtown Cobourg. Although people may not always see where our officers are, doesn't mean that we're not present, but we are hearing you that we are going to be more present in areas where people are congregating at Victoria Hall. I know that we had some deployment most recently, where members were coming out of concerts at 10 o'clock at night, and we had a specific deployment there for that time frame to ensure that people feel that sense of safety when they're walking to their cars or walking home. So, so thank you again for the comments that are
Justifying causes fear. Night prowling, disturbing the peace, section 430 of Criminal Code of Canada, mischief, destroy or damage property, section 264.1, uttering threats, section 17, trespassing, loitering and prowling at night. So my question is, the police have consistently not pressed charges for these crimes under the Criminal Code of Canada, and why?
I can actually say to you that if we have reasonable grounds to believe an offense is committed, unless it's a mental health diversion, which is another legislative process, our officers lay charges. We are an enforcement agency, is one of our lanes, and our officers do lay charges. If we have evidence to believe that an offense is committed and can prove it to a prima facie, we lay the charge. Our courts are as busy as they've ever been, our court staff, I should say, are as busy as they've ever been, our charges are up. Section 430, subsection 4 of the Criminal Code is commonly known as mischief. It's 264.1 threatening, right? I'm just going back, God, you guys are testing me, it's like a promotion with that. These are offenses, sure. Disturb the peace, yeah, it's an offense. So let's talk about cause disturbance. Section 175 of the Criminal Code still. And we need to have a complainant. So somebody who calls in dispatch at 1 o'clock in the morning and reports an anonymous complaint about people yelling and screaming in the street is not cause disturbance. That's a disturbance call. You can't lay an offense. Can't lay a charge. So we need a complainant. It's a summary conviction offense. Our officers have to find committing or proceed afterwards. Threats, victim-centered approach. Not all people who are subject of a threat want charges to be laid. Sometimes they just want it to be reported. So we don't necessarily lay a charge because all of our offenses around persons' crimes are victim-centered. So the victim has the right to help us direct the process that we can undertake. Again, like the deputy said, to get to a drug warrant, if you will, there's many, many steps. To get to a criminal harassment charge, there's many, many steps. It's not TV. I say that with some sense of humor. We're not going to solve all offenses in an hour with commercials. And sometimes we can't solve them. Sometimes there's a series of offenses or a series of facts that we just can't overcome. But I, again, stand behind my membership. They know that where I stand on this fact. If charges are available, charges are to be laid, the courts can manage the process. Thank you.
You see someone sitting on the curb doing drugs and maybe asking for money, and your first thought is to call the police. You need to be educated further. That is equivalent to coping with mental illness. They have resources, yes, but maybe not affordable resources, or they've reached the limit on their stay in a shelter. Instead of complaining and posting on Facebook constantly, put more effort into suggesting a fix. Dumping and ignoring the homeless and their advocates is not a solution. This applies to everyone. So this is more Did you have anything that was more of that? All right. So stats were very helpful. Please clarify police stats regarding and responding to the drug overdoses and the deaths for this year. Please expand on the police emergency, the serious response to these situations, what staffing has been allocated. Thank you for this opportunity.
We're playing mic share here. You get your bike, you run bike. So that might be one of the games we do for increased presence, find Hillary on the bike, right? It's going to be like, where's Waldo? Or the Segway, yeah, sure. Okay, so, God, I got distracted there. It must be a long day.
We're knowing about the suicide.
Oh yeah, okay, so last year I believe we had 5.
Overdoses, I apologize. Overdoses.
We had 5 drug poisoning deaths, I believe, this last year. and I'm sure there were more, but not necessarily engaged with us. It might have been elsewhere, but we had reported to 5. And how are our officers responding to that? I've said this before, so I'll just repeat the same language. When you become police officers, and again, I've got 33 years in this, a life-saving event, in fact, that I was engaged in a life-saving event, might have happened once or twice, and our officers are doing it more because of the opioid epidemic that exists in our country, not Cobourg, in our country. And our officers respond to these, I think last night, 2, where we went, where people were taking care of people, but our officers still attended, dealt with whatever we could deal with and move on. So our officers are obviously equipped, trained, they provide the necessary assistance, oftentimes ambulance is present, fire service is present, all emergency services are present, and we provide that kind of care. As far as a tragic death in relation to this, it's like any other death investigation, it has a very thorough process that's oversaw by right up to including the deputy chief, so we know, and the coroner's office. So I'm very comfortable that our folks do, again, a great job on that. But to answer the question, it's 5. Yeah, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds of statistics because I just don't want to misspeak. But again, if you have a question about them, let me know after the fact, and I'll get you the real data out of here. But I'm confident on the number 5. I think I got that, Hillary.
Business in the downtown core, 11 Charles Street, which is a division in Charles. And I'm looking for guidance as a business owner. You haven't heard from us before, so all of those statistics are a little bit out of whack because I believe that people that look after their own properties aren't calling you. We're not living in fear. We're getting tired. So I have a few questions. I'm going to go as quickly as I possibly can. We've been business owners in the area for 35 plus years, the same location, and never had any of these issues until the last 3 years, as you know. How do we as business owners handle the constant, almost daily property damage? How do we deal with garbage? Some of it that I do not wish to pick up myself. How do I deal with the daily urination on our property? And the constant trespassing. I understand people need dry places to sleep, but damaging my property to sleep under my stairwell in the back area is getting really difficult when you're trying to run a business. How do we handle the constant harassment of our staff? We are very close to the Frank between, we're right at the trailer park, Frank, right in that area. Our staff is being spit at, chased, screamed at, going to their cars at night, coming to our business in the morning, going to the bank, going for a coffee or lunch. This is a daily thing that's happening. It's hard enough to get staff in Cobourg right now. I don't need staff leaving because of this situation. How do we as business owners handle random people who are needing help? And I understand that. I'm trying to run a medical facility. They think I'm doing mental health. I fix teeth. I don't fix anything else. How do we handle these people that want to squat in we're trying to keep a sterile environment. How do I do that? I mean, I have the health unit checking regularly. How do we keep a sterile environment when these people want to come and use our bathroom, want to hang out in our area of business? Sorry. How do I run a business in downtown Cobourg under the present circumstances?
Great question.
Thank you very much, Debbie, and again, thank you for your authentic comments and questions. Yeah, so obviously we have to do better for you. We're not doing it well enough. A lot of that isn't us though. A lot of it can be done by we heard it earlier. A lot of it can be done by our forecasts or other community agencies who need to help here. Your staff should not ever feel they're unsafe walking to their car. Ken Prue reached out to me within the last week and a half, and we were able to action something very quickly with our auxiliaries and our specialists, and they did a great job very quickly. Yeah, you're right, it's hard enough to get staff, I understand that. Again, my wife always cringes when I bring her up with these presentations, but some of you who shop or bank at a Scotiabank downtown may know Kathy, and she's always worked in downtown branches. When we were in Belleville, she always worked at a downtown branch, and she loves the variety that it brings. And she says the same thing, and the bank has repositioned parking for their staff, and they work with Somerville to create, because of that. We have to do better. That's why we're here. Like, if I'm not living in isolation, I understand that there is some work that we need to do, but throwing uniforms aimlessly in spaces isn't necessarily going to provide the long-term solution when all of a sudden I have to deploy them elsewhere. For another reason. So, what I heard is people are damaging your stuff and they're harassing your staff. We must stop that. We must know who these people are. We must hold them accountable for their criminal behavior, and we will.
Do it.
People who are trespassing and who are leaving needles in garbage. Okay, needles is harm reduction. We need to work with our health unit in Parn to create better needle depositories for used needles. We have partners in this room who can take that as a takeaway and challenge the health unit and challenge council, and there's counselors here to create a harm reduction strategy for safe disposal of needles. That isn't your property. And as far as people, again, urinating and trespassing on your property, we also have the crime prevention through environmental design. People do great work. We go all over downtown. Our auxiliaries do a fantastic job, and maybe there's something simple we can do to help you in your business in creating it as a less attractive space for this behavior to occur. What I'm telling you is others need to carry this load with me, and my team need to do a better job when we can.
There doesn't seem to be a homeless or vagrant problem in the downtown. Perhaps the chief should find out how they have accomplished this and follow their lead. I've lived in Cobourg for 5 years, and the homeless problem is worse than it's ever been.
Be honest.
So I'm not a Cobourgian or a Port Hopian. I came from Belleville, as everybody knows. So this whole Hatfield McCoy thing is truly it's something. I tell you, it's something else. And listen, Cobourg, all seriousness, Cobourg is the county seat. The bulk of services that exist in Northumberland County exist in Cobourg. The warming room for people in the winter months is in Cobourg. The drop-in center and/or churches who provide the care when there's not other care for people are in Cobourg. The county headquarters, head office is in Cobourg. The court is in Cobourg. The old adage that I heard is, "Chief, you got the hop."
And you got our Canadian Tire. So.
And Walmart, again, thanks Jeff Walmart too. So at the end of the day, this is no different than when I came from Belleville. It was the Hastings County hub, but it's a much bigger county, very far north into Bancroft, North Hastings. And again, the same issue. So when we talked about our police deployment models in Belleville, we always talked about our daytime population was 50,000, but our nighttime population was 50, but our daytime population was around 100. It's no different in Cobourg. It's the county seat, so the daytime population is probably triple what it is at night. So this is why it is. So the services are here, there exists the support here, the court, everything is here. That's why it's here. But Port Hope has homelessness as well. it's just not as pronounced or it's proportional. And right, they have a smaller police service. They have a great new chief. The ex-chief did a great job. I think I'm trying. And I don't know what the answer is to that. Again, we talk about crime. Our numbers, I'm satisfied with our crime, the way we're trying to work it down. The other social disorder stuff just exists in Cobourg. I wish I had an easier answer, and I wish I could say, let's make it Port Hope's problem, but that's not what we're doing.
Hours because homeless people were sleeping there. Question 2. You have given us stats, but what about specific examples as to what you have been doing? Question 3. This is more of a statement. I don't want to see injection sites or tents in the community. Living downtown, I was at the Tweak Easy meeting last week, and I was one of the 50, I apologize, and one of the 5 people, and there was over 60 present. I apologize. I'm going to leave that one, but the question's about what we're doing.
Sure, quickly, the bank vestibules, that's a decision of the banks. Again, that's their right to close them or open them or not, so I leave it to the banks. And you can deal with that. Specific examples of what we're doing. So let's talk from crime prevention, our auxiliaries, our special constables, our tiered policing model. We have the crime prevention through environmental design. We have a lot of community outreach opportunities, the fraud presentations, all of those things that we're doing. Lots of preventative stuff happening every day. Engaging with the community from a different perspective, from HARP and MHARP. That's MHARP, for those who don't know, it's a police officer and a crisis mental health nurse in the car at the same time, working people through the crisis of their mental health crisis, getting them to appointments, getting them care. We have lots of collaborative efforts with Northumberland County, with the town. We work very closely with bylaw to make sure the right people are doing the right things at the right time. From a law enforcement perspective, we've talked about it. We work very closely with Port Hope in the OPP. We've had significant success in drug warrants, and the team goes out, a big cheer goes out to the officers and the work they do. The deputies already indicated it's a big job. This is not TV, people. To get an information to obtain a search warrant, it is a long and drawn out process and takes lots of time. We do that. We still do that. Our officers on random patrol, just out there doing their job, stop cars, recovering firearms from our community. The deputy said it earlier, our people do not turn a blind eye to this. I wake up every night and I look at and I wait for the end of shift report, and every night our people are doing significant crime abatement exercises, both preventative and reactive, and that arresting people for doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. So that's what we're doing. I'm not going to comment about statements. Everybody has an opinion. That's awesome. And we're going to do more, and that's why we're here. The move forward piece is we're going to do something more, something unique, something that works for us. And that's why we're in this participatory phase of our managing our manifestation of fear. I'm cognizant of the time. I don't know what the score is, but we do want to wrap this up, and I'm happy to keep going. 4 more. Okay.
I believe that I do understand your thing on fear. I don't think the fear comes from our regular homeless people or, our locals that are in distress. I think it comes from the fear when these people are acting extremely odd. They're in psychosis, they're threatening people's lives, threatening to stab people. I don't know what could be done about the immediate danger and our fear when these things happen. When they're in our buildings, when they're in our bus shelters, when they're on the corner threatening people's lives. The other thing is who is responsible for the drug cleanup? Right now, as we speak, I have a meth pipe broken in my lobby. I have, since this afternoon, there's tinfoil sitting there. I have dogs and children. And I'm just here for information on how to fix this problem. I have residents that we can't sleep. My landlord has hired the K9 unit to sit down there on King Street. I still can't sleep.
I don't know what you want me to do in the best route into fixing this problem for me and for you guys.
The one thing we,
Call Farm, we do harm reduction cleanup anywhere, anytime you need it.
can I repeat that for you?
Yeah.
Call Parn, they do remediation and cleanup all the time.
Cleanup.
What's the phone number?
Thank you. So they said, call Parn, they do harm reduction cleanup.
Thank you.
Is there a number?
I can grab it.
Okay, I'm going to pass back to Chief.
While you're digging that number up, I'm just going to answer the mental health apprehensions question. So there is a question about people acting out, yelling, screaming, threatening, whatever. Our officers regularly attend, and they will meet with individuals, assess through MHART, or if MHART is after hours, go through a mental health screener. If there's an apprehension of mental health active material, they'll make an apprehension, take the person to Northumberland Nicholas Hospital, will be assessed by emergency services, emergency room doctors to determine whether or not they're going to stay at hospital for a couple of days to manage through their psychosis. So that is something that happens, and those who aren't apprehended, that's when HART and or MHART kind of kick in with them the next day, try to engage the ACT team, forecast, or other agencies in the resource. But again, there's an example of it's not a crime to yell and scream at the sky. It's annoying, we don't sleep, it creates fear, but there's no offense for yelling and screaming at the stars, okay? So we do the mental health apprehensions, we take them to hospital, we get them the care that they came that way. Do we have a number yet? Yeah, again, we go back to the cause of disturbance. So it's a summary conviction offense, so we have to find the person committing, and I need a person to provide me a statement who's willing to go to court for a summary conviction offense. That's just the law. Not that we can't, but and then if they are suffering from mental health crisis, they'll defer that in court.
So the PARN number, 705-749-9110. 705-749-9110. And they do, as I understand, drug paraphernalia remediation and cleanup, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Also supplies anyone who needs it.
And safe supplies.
I don't feel uneasy, I don't feel unnerved, I feel unsafe. I can't go for my early morning walks, I can't go to the bank, I can't use the washroom. I've changed my routes a number of times, they still seem to find me. I now carry a personal alarm, I should not have to do that. The other day was followed into 3 different stores by the same person that was clearly out of control. I can't walk down Chapel Street. A young woman tried to push her way into my house. How come if I'm drunk and I'm walking down the street, I can be arrested? But if I'm drug intoxicated, doesn't seem to matter. What you allow is what will continue.
Thanks, Jackie. You're right. What we allow will continue. What we have to do is follow the rules and the law and order. Again, it's not reasonable that you should be followed into 3 stores and feel uncomfortable. I would ask in the future, if you feel uncomfortable, to make sure that you call out the first time so our officers will go and see what we can do about this. You're right. Again, this is going back to this need for increased presence. It just keeps coming back, but in a direct manner. So, yeah, I hear you, Jackie, for sure.
Street and others.
Permanently shut down. Is Ann Taylor here from the planning department? Listen, that particular residence, we have information that we can get. We obtain a search warrant, we execute the search warrant, we arrest those individuals we find within, we lay the appropriate charges. If it reconvenes the next time that particular residence, you'll recall that we held the landlord accountable, and we actually worked very closely with fire services and ensured that the fire code was being followed so that everybody who was living there was safe, because at one point it wasn't safe for everybody living in there. So we used all means. We used planning, we used property standards, we used the fire code, and we used the criminal code to ensure that. But at the end of the day, we do not have in Canada the authority to permanently close a residence. That just doesn't exist.
So I recognize the statistic was not shared. However, stats released by national organizations, including the Mental Health of Canada, show that those who are vulnerable in our community experiencing mental health crisis, addictions, and homelessness are more at risk of being a victim of crime such as assault as opposed to always being a perpetrator. What is the police doing to support the safety of those vulnerable community members? As for the increased risk to these individuals' safety, what community education is happening to regard this issue?
Yeah, thanks very much. Again, question asked, question answered. I think we protect all people equally. We don't differentiate. So the same study, I have read that study, and actually a piece that's missing in that is the elderly are also highly proportionally different. So just to remind everybody, we enforce the law
regardless of who
is committing that offense. We don't turn our blind eye. We have to understand that the court system, I'm not putting this on the courts, but we may arrest somebody for an event that if there's a mental health related to the offense, they may divert that appropriately in court. That's not my officer's opportunity. They manage their system. We do it with youthful offenders. We do it in other circumstances. So diversionary courts are very common in Canada, and that's a good thing, because we keep people accountable, but we move them to where the appropriate response is. And that was actually the foundation of the Youth Criminal Justice Act. Again, it's a skill testing question for my good staff sergeant, but when I started, it was the Young Offenders Act. So when the Youth Criminal Justice Act came into place, that diversionary process was embedded in that act in relation to youth, and there's no difference with the issues of gender-based violence, issues of mental health related offenses, etc.
A question about staff levels. What are you doing to support your staff and their safety and mental health to be able to stay healthy and actively working for our community and ensure that everyone is safe and respected?
Let me just start with a round of applause for that question. So, I have the easiest job of all of the chiefs in Ontario, if not Canada, because the people who work for me are just amazing people. They come to work every day, and the thing that you're feeling, the stress, the frustration you're feeling, trust me, they feel it every day. They don't want to be disabled to providing a solution for you. We do this job because it's a calling, it's not a job. We do this because it's the reason we serve.
So what do we do?
Get new microphones. We'll make a donation to the Lions Club, new microphones. So what we do, we have a very robust wellness program. We have it's ever evolving. The fire chief is here. We're just getting into some peer support systems combined with fire. Our team's wellness and health comes first. Our key people are receiving psychological treatment. The board's most recent negotiations with both associations were in definition a wellness first bargaining solution, Chair, if I can be so honest, and that included increased benefits for psychological health, that increased personal wellness days for part-time and full-time staff. The deputy comes to work every day and kicks my rear end to remember to say, hey chief, if you found somebody doing something right today. And that's the people we have, is great people here, so I get passionate about that. We got great people.
Very quickly to wrap it up, and I'll pull up a quick slide here.
So the last thing I'll say, Scott knows me, I say this all the time, rank catches privileges. So as chief, I got to say thank you very much, first and foremost, for your coming out and giving us 820. Thank Chair for doing this and the commitment to this. Moving forward, we've heard a ton. We have to take this back. We have to disseminate what we can do. It's almost too soon for me to start talking about themes other than we're going to work with our teams. And Cindy, I see her in the back. We're going to recognize the great work that we do and the people who assist us. We're going to look to leverage our partners. We're going to hold people accountable in our community. We're going to continue to arrest drug dealers. We're going to ensure that the right people are helping you make safe. We're going to ensure your businesses can thrive. And we're going to do it all by next Friday. So I obviously jest. So you'll start to see some things under the mantra of dynamic patrol program. So keep your ears to that. That's what we're going to be launching. We don't know what it's going to totally look like, but it's going to start with increased presence. We've already seen it. You've already seen it. So pay attention to all your social media outlets or different outlets of press. We're going to continue to come back to you. The board agrees, forces my hand every day to be engaged in the sense of meeting community groups, talking to individuals, 1, 2, 5, 10, or 262 that might have been here tonight. You got your second question. Okay.
My question was, your statistics that you provided at the beginning, could they potentially be skewed because people are feeling so hopeless and not making calls to the police because they're afraid nothing will be done?
Yeah, so regardless of how you're feeling, crime statistics are always underreported. So they're always an underreport.
But they were so emphasized at the beginning.
I was trying to make a point. Thank you for shattering my dream. No, they're emphasized for a reason. Those are stats. Those are the facts. That's what we had. Could they be worse? Sure, but they proportionally, they would be, I would argue, proportionally, if we had 100 more reports, ratio would say they would look much the same, just more of them. Fair? Maybe? Not fair. Okay, we'll disagree on it. That's fine. We don't have to agree all the time. But the point was safety and fear. We hear the fear. We're going to be present. We're going to listen. We're going to act. That's my promise for you tonight. I think I'm going to answer some questions to the media. I'm going to stay here as long as we can. Teresa, hello. I see you there. We read your question. I'm not sure if you were here. I'm not sure, but we read your question. Ron, always nice to see you. If you want to ask me a question, I'm going to hang around, but I got to do the media thing first.
Just tell me about tonight. Were you happy with the turnout as well as the questions that you faced?
Yeah, you know what? Tonight was obviously a needed opportunity for the community to come together. There's been a lot of stuff going on in the community. So we've been hearing these safety versus fear concerns for a while, obviously, but then it's come to a boiling point most recently. So obviously, was I happy with the turnout? Absolutely. Yeah. So a month ago, we had coffee with the chief. One individual showed up. Today, I think we had well over 250. So I was really happy with that. I was really happy with who came. I think we had a really great cross-section of community members, business owners, politicians, county executive, town executive. So what that tells me is it tells me that there is a willingness from every section, media, sorry, I forgot you guys, every section to do something to move us forward. And I really like the fact that people want to challenge my story, if you will, and right to the very end, somebody wanted to argue stats with me. That's awesome. It's just fantastic. Like, I don't see that as a bad thing. I don't have one negative feeling right now today. I think this is exactly what needed to happen for our community. I said it at the outset. I think community healing began today. I don't know that we're there yet. I think there's a lot of room to grow, but the community spirit is alive and well, and that's one of the reasons I came to Cobourg over 7 years ago, was because I knew it was alive and well, and I think we're poised to have some pretty good success.
One of the things that if you can just talk a little bit about Chief, one of the things that I find, and correct me obviously if I'm wrong, but even trespassing charges, there's a story around that, how they're hard to lay.
Oh, sure. Listen,
because if you can talk a little bit about how the government.
So there's a lot of people are upset with us, and we're the tip of the spear on a lot of these issues. So what I heard for the first little while today was a lot of social disorder issues that really aren't mine. Like, luckily somebody yelled from the back room, "Hey, we'll do that. We're from Parn." So that's awesome. That's great, right? So we got a phone number and we barked it out. So there is an opportunity where I think those groups may not have been all been in harmony prior to tonight, and here they are working together, even if it's in a very small way. The trespass to property is a provincial offense. It's a fine. It's a $75 fine, and there's no compulsion to pay it. So in other words, if a person doesn't pay their ticket, it just sits in Ontario as unclaimed debt. So really, does that changing anything? So when my officers don't continually lay the silly provincial ticket, I don't blame them in a way. I understand the frustration this crowd has heard, but again, people don't have a place to live. They don't have money to pay for a fine for something that it begets, and this, you can see how the snowball comes down the road, right? It begins as trespassing, then it becomes the police don't care, then it becomes who's gonna clean up my stuff and who's gonna, so this is where we have to just really be careful that we're doing the right things at the right times. What I did hear was that they don't think my staff are enforcement minded, and I did disagree with that. I think our team does a pretty great job.
Moving forward, next steps for you, and what's your timeline looking like in regards to the?
I think I said I'm going to have it all fixed by Friday, right? Listen. So we have an idea. Like at the Cobourg Police Service, my team are all experts. Every civilian member, every uniform member, every special, every volunteer. So we've got a list of what my people think we can do to solve this. But we're not releasing any of that because we're not the only person in this game. So we heard from the community, and it's funny how closely they aligned. So we do have the dynamic patrol program. That is going to be what we're going to brand. And the reason I'm calling it that, because this is not about downtown. We could have a similar or unlike problem in the north end of town that we're going to have to be dynamic in our response. So we are going to be, we've already soft launched increased visibility. So we've seen it on social media. We heard Ken Prue's comment today that he was thankful that our auxiliary were down to help people get out of the show at the Vic Hall. So we're going to continue that. You heard a few other comments. Thank you. I saw this person. We're going to continue that. Like presence, we heard loud and clear. They want to see presence. But I've been at this for 33 years. We're going to have directed presence. So our dynamic patrol is going to be geared to address the key things that are in our lane: enforcement, arresting people, holding people accountable, and actually moving people from situation to resources, whatever that looks like. So our timeline is probably about 3 months, honestly, 3 to 4 months. We don't know what it's gonna look like. Listen, this is an opioid epidemic that was masked because COVID. We were all concerned about masks, social distancing, like this was a super spreader a year ago, right? So, and nobody put their eyes to the opioid epidemic. Now we're seeing it again. Well, it's been years, this is everywhere. So we're gonna keep moving forward. We're gonna keep addressing the issues day by day. We have significant plans coming. We heard from the community. I think there's some grassroots community advocacy group that wants to happen here. I think we heard about a community policing liaison committee, so that's something that we're gonna be looking at. So we're gonna keep pushing it out, but we're gonna do it in a directed manner so we can measure results, and then I can come back before this group and deliver results. So it's not going to be overnight, and although I was facetiously saying we'll have it all solved by next Friday, it won't. It's going to take months.
Lisa will still be the lightning rod for comments, questions, concerns?
Yes and no. You're going to see us putting the right people. So you saw Hillary today. Hillary obviously is not shy, so she's one of our special constables. So we're going to start having social media and media champions in uniform in various areas, but Lisa's still, she's cringing right now because I don't think we've totally signed off on that, but I think we just did run on the news. So, but yeah, no, Lisa's our lightning rod. We've got lots of lightning rods. As like I said, in there, best job in the world that I have. I got a great team and they're gonna do great work.